I died right after winning $1 billion. Then a tiny floating system offered me 2 billion more to transmigrate into a BL novel. My mission: save the tragic villain before he dies. The problem? Every time I think something embarrassing, the male leads can hear it. And somehow, instead of falling for the protagonist, they all became obsessed with me. The first thing Rowan Hale heard after dying was, "Skill issue." Rowan opened his eyes slowly. White space. No clouds. No angels. No dramatic choir music. Just an aggressively bright void and a tiny floating man wearing sunglasses, glitter boots, and a fur coat bigger than his body. The creature crossed his tiny arms. Honestly, dying from happiness after winning the lottery is embarrassing. Rowan sat up violently. My money, gone. My apartment, also gone. My future luxury bathtub, never happened. Rowan stared blankly for 3 seconds before collapsing face first onto the white floor. I survived poverty for nothing. The tiny man floated lower. Okay, dramatic king, listen carefully. I am System 089, specialist in tragic novel repair missions. I don't care. You have been selected. I reject. You haven't even heard the. I reject harder. The system's smile twitched. Rowan rolled over dramatically. Let me die again. You can't. Then send me back. Also impossible. Rowan pointed accusingly. This is kidnapping. This is employment. This is emotional terrorism. The system inhaled deeply like it was trying not to punch him. Complete one mission, and you'll receive compensation. I had $1 billion already. 2 billion. Silence. Rowan slowly sat up again. Continue. The system grinned wickedly. A giant screen suddenly appeared in front of Rowan, showing a handsome black-haired young man crying in the rain while another beautiful man slapped him. Welcome to the world of stolen fate. Oh no, Rowan whispered. It's one of those novels. It is your job to prevent the destruction of this character. The screen zoomed in dramatically. Adrian Vale. Adopted son of the Vale family. Future tragic cannon fodder. The story unfolded quickly. 20 years ago, the wealthy Vale family lost their biological child during an accident. Heartbroken, Madame Vale nearly lost her mind from grief, so her husband adopted an orphan boy, Adrian, to ease her pain while secretly continuing the search for their missing son. Then years later, the real son returned. Luca Vale, the true protagonist. The screen changed again. Another man appeared, handsome in a snake-like way. This, the system announced, is the villain fiancé. Oh, he looks evil. He absolutely is. The villain abandoned Adrian the second he learned Adrian wasn't the true heir. Then he proposed marriage to Luca instead to steal the Vale fortune. That's cold. It gets worse. The villain manipulated Adrian emotionally, convincing him they still loved each other while secretly using him to destroy Luca. Eventually, Adrian got exposed, abandoned, publicly humiliated, physically abused after losing protection, and died alone in a valley. Rowan stared quietly. That's depressing. Your mission is simple, the system said proudly. Save Adrian. Protect the family. Ensure Luca ends up with the 2 male leads. The screen changed again. 2 men appeared. One had sharp silver eyes and an expression that screamed, I bury bodies professionally. The other smiled lazily with golden brown eyes that looked dangerous in a completely different way. The Loron brothers, the system explained. Caspian and Eli. Childhood friends of Luca. Originally, they helped destroy Adrian. Rowan squinted. Why are they both hot? Focus. No, seriously, is everyone in this novel illegally attractive? The system ignored him. You will transmigrate as Rowan Ethan, the gardener's son working at the Vale estate. What's my survival rate? The system looked away. System? Technically alive? That's not reassuring. Anyway, the system clapped. Accept mission? Rowan crossed his arms. I want a contract. What? A written agreement about the 2 billion. The system looked horrified. You died and immediately became worse. 1 billion changes a man. Fine. 5 minutes later, Rowan signed the glowing contract while muttering happily. 2 billion. I'm going to buy 10 bathtubs. The system snapped its fingers. The world shattered. Pain exploded through Rowan's skull. He gasped awake in a tiny servant bedroom. A loud scream escaped him as memories flooded his head. New world. New body. New identity. Oh my God! A tiny figure suddenly popped into existence beside his face. Good morning, System 089 announced cheerfully. Rowan slapped the floating man instinctively. Ow! You spawned too close. The door suddenly opened. A middle-aged woman wearing a maid uniform peeked inside. Young Rowan? Are you all right? Rowan immediately straightened. Yes. Then his eyes widened, because standing behind her was Adrian Vale. Real Adrian Vale. Tall, beautiful, pale skin, dark eyes, and painfully exhausted. Rowan froze. Holy hell. The tragic adopted son is gorgeous. The room became silent. Adrian blinked slowly. The maid looked confused. Rowan frowned slightly. Why are you staring at me? Adrian's expression turned strange. Very strange. Like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Then quietly, Adrian asked, You think I'm gorgeous? Rowan choked. What? You just said it. Cold fear crawled down Rowan's spine. I absolutely did not. Adrian stared. The maid stared. System 089 suddenly looked nervous. Rowan narrowed his eyes slowly at the floating creature. The system immediately whistled and looked away. Oh no! Adrian's eyes widened slightly again. Rowan's soul left his body. Why did he react to that thought too? The silence became horrifying. Then Adrian spoke carefully. You keep saying strange things without moving your lips. Rowan turned toward the system with murderous calm. What? The system floated backward. Okay, technically there may have been a tiny side effect during transmigration. What side effect? Nothing major. System. Some characters can hear your thoughts. Rowan went completely still. I'm going to kill you. Not everyone can hear them. That doesn't help. Adrian suddenly laughed quietly. It shocked everyone in the room. Because according to the novel memories, Adrian rarely smiled anymore. But now he was covering his mouth, shoulders shaking slightly. Rowan stared blankly. He's prettier when he smiles. Adrian instantly stopped laughing. Their eyes met. A faint redness slowly appeared near Adrian's ears. Oh no, Rowan whispered. The system floated higher defensively. In my defense, it's funny. You ruined my life. You were dead already. Before Rowan could continue screaming, another voice suddenly spoke from the hallway. Adrian. Footsteps approached. Two men appeared near the doorway. Caspian Laurent. Eli Laurent. Even more terrifyingly handsome in person. Eli leaned lazily against the doorframe. Your mother's looking for. Then he noticed Rowan. Rowan's brain immediately betrayed him. Why does he look like a man who says good boy during? Rowan slapped both hands over his mouth in horror. Silence. Absolute silence. Eli slowly raised an eyebrow. Caspian nearly choked on air. Adrian abruptly turned away like he was trying not to laugh again. Rowan wanted the ground to eat him alive. Eli walked into the room slowly, amused grin spreading across his face. Well, he drawled softly, this servant is interesting. I'm unemployed in 2 seconds. Eli's grin widened. Caspian stared at Rowan intensely now, silver eyes sharp with interest. Rowan panicked internally. Don't think weird things. Don't think weird things. Then Caspian loosened his tie slightly. Rowan's soul ascended. Oh, he's the dangerous one. Caspian went completely still. Eli burst out laughing. And somewhere beside Rowan, System 089 quietly whispered, Oh, this mission is going to be a disaster. Rowan spent the next 3 days trying not to think. Unfortunately, thinking was difficult to avoid when his brain behaved like a drunk live stream. Every single dangerous thought escaped without permission. And the worst part? Nobody explained why only certain people could hear him. Not the maids. Not the guards. Not random workers. Only Adrian, the Vale family, and the Laurent brothers. Exactly the people he needed to act normal around. Which was impossible. Absolutely impossible. Young Master Adrian, your tea. Rowan placed the cup down carefully while staring at the table instead of Adrian's face. Because Adrian had started looking at him strangely lately. Too softly. Too attentively. Like Rowan had become some fascinating creature he wanted to study. Thank you, Adrian said quietly. Don't look at him. Don't think about his hands. Why are rich people hands so pretty? The spoon in Adrian's fingers clinked loudly against the cup. Rowan immediately panicked. I mean, you don't need to explain anymore, Adrian interrupted softly, which somehow felt worse. Adrian took a slow sip of tea, pretending calm, but Rowan noticed the faint redness near his ears again. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Because this was supposed to be the tragic future villain, not a beautiful, lonely man blushing over compliments. System 089 floated invisibly beside Rowan, munching popcorn dramatically. You're making the target emotionally attached to you. I'm literally serving tea. You called his collarbone sinful yesterday. I didn't say it out loud. Adrian nearly inhaled tea into his lungs. Rowan closed his eyes in despair. Across the room, Madame Vale entered with elegant grace, followed by several servants. The moment she saw Adrian, her expression softened warmly. Then she noticed Rowan, and froze, because Rowan's exhausted brain immediately produced. Rich older women are terrifying. She looks like she could destroy a government. Madame Vale. Respectfully. A servant suddenly snorted. Madame Vale pressed fingers lightly against her lips, hiding what suspiciously looked like amusement. This family was adapting too quickly. Rowan, she said calmly, come with me. Am I getting fired? Please don't fire me. I like expensive carpets. Madame Vale's lips twitched. Adrian quietly looked away again. 10 minutes later, Rowan sat nervously inside Madame Vale's private sitting room while staring at desserts that probably cost more than his old monthly salary. Madame Vale observed him carefully. You seem frightened of me. Because rich women in novels either adopt you or poison you. Excuse me? Nothing. System 089 rolled through the air, laughing silently. Madame Vale sighed softly. You are close to Adrian lately. Rowan blinked. Close. They'd known each other for 3 days. But then he remembered. Original Adrian had almost nobody. His parents cared for him, yes, but there was distance now. Anxiety. Guilt. Confusion ever since news about the missing real son resurfaced. The servants feared Adrian's temper. His fiancée manipulated him. The Lauron brothers barely tolerated him. So even simple kindness probably felt unfamiliar. Rowan's chest tightened unexpectedly. This whole family needs therapy. Madame Vale stared into space briefly, like she was questioning her life choices. Then quietly she asked, What do you think of Adrian? Rowan answered honestly before he could stop himself. He tries very hard not to look hurt all the time. Silence filled the room. Madame Vale's expression changed instantly. Pain flickered across her elegant face. Because she knew it was true. Rowan realized too late what he'd done. Sorry. No, she whispered softly. You're observant. The room became uncomfortably emotional. Rowan hated emotional conversations, especially when rich people looked like they might cry elegantly. Thankfully, the door suddenly burst open. Mother, Caspian's threatening stockbrokers again. Eli Lauron stopped mid-sentence upon seeing Rowan. His grin appeared instantly. Well, if it isn't the mind reader's victim. I'm the victim. Eli ignored him completely and dropped lazily onto the sofa beside Rowan. Far too close. Way too close. Their thighs touched lightly. Rowan's nervous system exploded. Oh no, he smells good. Eli's smile deepened slowly. Why are his shoulders so broad? Is he illegally built? Madame Vale turned away abruptly, shoulders shaking suspiciously. Traitor. Eli leaned closer intentionally now. You think about me a lot. I absolutely do not. Liar. Eli laughed outright. Rowan wanted death. Fast. Immediate. Caspian entered moments later, cool and composed in a dark suit. Then his silver eyes landed on Rowan. And narrowed slightly. Because Rowan's thoughts immediately betrayed him again. There's no way this man is straight. He looks expensive and emotionally unavailable. Caspian stopped walking. Eli nearly fell off the couch laughing. You're obsessed with us, Eli declared. I'm trying to survive. Caspian stepped closer calmly. Interesting survival strategy. Why does his voice sound like foreplay? The room became deadly silent. Madame Vale covered her face completely now. Adrian, who had quietly entered halfway through the conversation, looked seconds away from choking. Rowan stood abruptly. I quit. You can't quit, System 089 reminded helpfully. I'll quit life again. Eli grabbed Rowan's wrist before he could escape. Warm fingers circled his skin loosely. Not enough to trap him. Just enough to stop him. Rowan looked down automatically. Oh, that's unfairly attractive. Eli's gaze darkened slightly. For the first time since meeting him, the playful teasing faded a little. Something sharper appeared underneath. Something possessive. Stay for lunch, Eli said softly. I have work. I'll pay you. Rowan paused. Everyone noticed. How much? Caspian actually looked offended. Eli burst out laughing again. You really love money. You don't understand poverty. Madame Vale suddenly spoke calmly from across the room. 10,000. Rowan turned instantly. What? Stay for lunch, she repeated elegantly. Mother, I am suddenly your most loyal employee. Adrian laughed quietly under his breath. And Caspian? Caspian stared at Rowan with increasing fascination, like he'd never met someone this shameless before. Lunch became a disaster, primarily because Rowan kept forgetting dangerous people could hear him. Luca Vale had arrived unexpectedly. The real son, the protagonist. The atmosphere changed immediately when he entered the dining room. Beautiful golden brown hair. Gentle eyes. Simple clothes despite recently reconnecting with the family. He looked warm in a way the others didn't. Human. Rowan softened instantly. Oh no. He's adorable. Luca blinked. The entire table froze. Pardon? Luca asked softly. Rowan slammed his head onto the table. Kill me. Eli laughed so hard he nearly dropped his wine glass. Luca looked completely bewildered. Then slowly, very slowly, his lips curved upward. The first real smile Rowan had seen from him. It made something ache unexpectedly inside Rowan's chest. That smile could fix my credit score. Now Luca choked. Caspian pinched the bridge of his nose. Madame Vale looked 1 second away from adopting Rowan emotionally. And Adrian? Adrian stared at Rowan quietly from across the table, watching him make everyone laugh, watching warmth slowly return to this broken family, watching life enter rooms that had once felt painfully tense. For the first time in years, Adrian didn't feel alone sitting at the dining table. And that terrified him, because he was already starting to want something dangerous, something impossible, something selfish. Him. That night Rowan collapsed dramatically onto his bed. I hate this world. System 089 floated above him lazily. You're doing great actually. They all think I'm insane. They think you're entertaining. That's worse. The system grinned knowingly. You're changing the story already. Rowan sighed heavily. Then quieter. What happens if I fail? The system's playful expression faded slightly. Adrian dies. The room fell silent. No jokes this time. No comedy. Just the heavy reminder of the original story. Rowan stared at the ceiling, then muttered softly, I won't let that happen. Outside the half-open window, someone paused silently in the hallway. Adrian. His fingers tightened slowly around the medicine tray in his hands after hearing Rowan's honest thought. For the first time in a very long time, someone had chosen him without wanting anything in return. And Adrian realized something dangerous. He didn't think he could let Rowan leave anymore. The first sign things were getting out of control came when Rowan woke up to find 3 luxury shopping bags on his bed. He stared at them blankly, then at the room, then back at the bags. System 089 floated upside down near the ceiling fan. Congratulations. You're being courted. I'm being bribed. Tomato, tomato. Rowan opened the nearest bag carefully. Inside sat a black cashmere coat so soft it nearly brought tears to his eyes. Another bag contained expensive shoes. The third, a platinum card. Rowan gasped. Rich people are terrifyingly romantic. A note sat beside the card. For emergency spending. CL. Rowan froze. Caspian Loron gave me a financial weapon. The system cackled. Rowan clutched the card dramatically to his chest. I understand corruption now. Unfortunately, the moment Rowan entered the main house wearing the cashmere coat, all hell broke loose. Because everyone recognized the brand immediately. Eli nearly spat out his coffee. Caspian remained calm for exactly 2 seconds before noticing Rowan wearing the coat. Then his silver eyes darkened faintly. Adrian looked between them slowly. And Luca, sweet innocent Luca, quietly asked, "Why does Rowan have your black card?" Silence. Deadly silence. Rowan immediately tried to hide it behind his back. Abort mission. Abort mission. Eli leaned back in his chair, grinning dangerously. Interesting question. Caspian adjusted his cuffs calmly. I gave it to him. Luca blinked slowly. Adrian's spoon bent slightly in his grip. Rowan suddenly sensed death approaching. I can explain. You accepted it? Adrian asked quietly. It had no spending limit, Adrian. Be realistic. Crack. The spoon snapped completely in Adrian's hand. Everyone stared. Adrian looked down at the broken metal silently before setting it aside with eerie calm. I see. System 089 whispered dramatically near Rowan's ear. Oh ho! The jealousy arc begins. Rowan mentally screamed. Things somehow became worse later that afternoon. Because Rowan's official mission progress was terrible. The villain fiancé hadn't even appeared yet. The male leads were supposed to fall for Luca. And Adrian was supposed to slowly reconcile with his adoptive brother. Instead, everyone was staring at Rowan like he personally invented emotional instability. Especially Adrian. Rowan noticed it constantly now. The way Adrian unconsciously searched for him in crowded rooms. The way his expression softened whenever Rowan smiled at him. The way his mood visibly darkened whenever Rowan spent too much time near Luca or the Loran brothers. Dangerous. Very dangerous. And unfortunately, Rowan was starting to understand why the original Adrian fell apart so easily. Loneliness changed people, especially when love became tangled with desperation. Rowan looked up from trimming roses in the garden. Adrian stood nearby dressed in dark formal clothes, beautiful as always but visibly tired. Come with me, Adrian said quietly. If this turns into murder, I regret nothing. Adrian's lips twitched faintly. He led Rowan toward the greenhouse behind the estate. Warm sunlight filtered through the glass walls, covering Adrian's face in gold. For a second, Rowan forgot to breathe. This novel's art budget is insane. Adrian finally laughed softly again. It happened more often lately. Only around Rowan. You think strange things, Adrian murmured. You hear strange things. That too. The atmosphere settled into something gentler. Dangerously intimate. Adrian moved closer slowly, fingers brushing leaves absent-mindedly. You aren't afraid of me, he said quietly. Rowan frowned. Why would I be? Adrian looked at him silently for several seconds. Then smiled bitterly. Everyone else is. The words landed heavily. Because Rowan knew the future. Knew how Adrian would eventually become paranoid, obsessive, cruel under manipulation and heartbreak. But standing here now, Adrian just looked exhausted. Lonely. Human. You haven't done anything wrong yet. Adrian froze completely. Rowan realized too late he'd thought that too loudly. The greenhouse became silent except for their breathing. Yet, Adrian repeated softly. Crap. Huge crap. Rowan's brain scrambled desperately. Think of something else. Think of something else. Unfortunately, his brain chose violence. His waist looks illegal in that outfit. Adrian turned bright red instantly. Rowan covered his face. I hate my life. Adrian suddenly stepped closer. Too close. Close enough for Rowan to smell expensive cologne and fresh rain. Close enough to notice how beautiful Adrian's eyes really were. Then Adrian asked softly, Do you think I'm a good person? The question caught Rowan off guard. Not handsome. Not interesting. Good. Like Adrian desperately needed someone to tell him he could still become someone worth loving. Rowan answered honestly. Yes. Adrian's breath hitched slightly. And Rowan, idiot Rowan, looked directly at Adrian's lips. Oh no. Adrian noticed immediately. The air shifted. Heavy now. Warm. Neither moved away. Rowan's pulse started racing. This feels dangerous. Adrian whispered quietly. Then stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like you want to kiss me. Rowan's brain exploded. Because he did. A little. Maybe more than a little. And Adrian hearing every thought made everything worse. This is your fault for being pretty. Adrian made a soft sound that almost resembled a laugh. Then suddenly, Adrian. The greenhouse door opened sharply. Caspian stood there. Cold. Elegant. Absolutely furious. Behind him stood Eli, looking equally dangerous despite smiling casually. And near the doorway, Luca, who looked hurt. Rowan immediately sensed catastrophe. Adrian stepped back slightly. Too late, because Caspian's gaze had already landed on Rowan's flushed face. Then Adrian's expression. Then the distance between them. The temperature inside the greenhouse dropped instantly. Eli walked in first, hands in pockets. Well, he drawled lightly, this looks intimate. I'm going to fake my death. We can still hear you, Eli reminded helpfully. Luca looked at Rowan quietly. Not angry, just sad, which somehow felt worse. Rowan, Luca asked softly, did you forget we planned to have dinner together tonight? Rowan blinked. Oh, right. He had promised Luca earlier, because part of his mission involved helping Luca adjust to the family and strengthening bonds. And Rowan genuinely liked spending time with him. Unfortunately, Adrian's expression darkened faintly hearing that. Caspian noticed instantly. So did Eli. And suddenly the greenhouse felt like a battlefield. System 089 floated nearby, eating chips dramatically. Tension level, delicious. Rowan wanted to strangle him. Eli suddenly wrapped an arm loosely around Rowan's shoulders. Come on, he said smoothly. Luca's been waiting. Instantly, Adrian grabbed Rowan's wrist. The movement shocked everyone, including Adrian himself. Silence crashed down. Rowan looked between them nervously. Oh no. Oh, this is very gay and very dangerous. Eli laughed sharply, but his eyes stayed cold. Let go, Eli said lightly. Adrian's grip tightened instead. Caspian stepped forward now, silver eyes unreadable. Adrian. Warning. Clear warning. The same warning from the original novel. The same way they used to protect Luca from Adrian. And Rowan saw it happen in real time. The exact moment Adrian noticed it too. Pain flickered briefly across Adrian's face. Because even now, even before the tragedy fully began, they were already instinctively choosing Luca over him. Just like the original story. Rowan reacted before thinking. He pulled his wrist free from Adrian gently, then immediately grabbed Adrian's hand instead. Everyone froze, including Adrian. He's staying for dinner too, Rowan said firmly. Silence. Then Rowan's suicidal brain added. If everyone's obsessed with me anyway, you all can behave. Complete silence. Eli stared. Luca choked. Caspian slowly covered his mouth. And Adrian looked at Rowan like he'd just handed him the entire world. Dinner should have been illegal. Not because of the food. The food was incredible. Rowan almost cried eating the steak alone. No. Dinner was illegal because 4 devastatingly attractive men kept staring at him like they were moments away from starting a war over custody rights. And unfortunately, they all knew it too. Rowan sat trapped between Adrian and Eli while Luca sat across from him and Caspian occupied the head of the table like a terrifyingly elegant mafia boss. Nobody spoke for a full minute. Only knives against plates. Wine pouring. Tension thick enough to choke on. This feels like a polykill hostage situation. Luca inhaled water wrong. Eli laughed into his glass. Adrian covered his face briefly. Caspian's shoulders moved once, his version of laughing. Rowan pointed accusingly at all of them. You people are ruining my emotional health. You never had emotional health, System 089 corrected. Fair. Madame Vale entered midway through dinner, paused at the atmosphere, then calmly turned around and left again. Coward. Absolute coward. Things somehow became worse when Eli casually draped an arm across the back of Rowan's chair. Not touching. Just there. Possessive enough to make Adrian visibly colder. Rowan noticed immediately. Oh no. Jealous Adrian is scary attractive. Adrian nearly snapped his wine glass. Luca looked between them quietly, then softly asked Rowan, would you like to visit the city with me tomorrow? Adrian's fork stopped moving. Eli's smile sharpened. Caspian calmly took another sip of wine like a man watching future violence unfold. Rowan blinked. With just us? Luca nodded carefully. His ears were slightly red. Cute. Dangerously cute. Why is the protagonist flirting now? Wasn't he supposed to fall in love with them? All three other men stiffened instantly. Luca lowered his gaze, embarrassed but stubborn. I thought maybe you'd enjoy it. Before Rowan could answer, a servant hurried inside nervously. Young Master Adrian, your fiancé has arrived. Silence. Every expression changed immediately. Adrian went pale. Caspian's eyes turned icy. Eli's smile vanished completely. And Luca, sweet Luca, looked deeply uncomfortable. Because this was where the original tragedy truly began. The villain had entered the story. Damien Cross arrived like a disease wearing expensive cologne. Handsome, polished, smiling perfectly. And Rowan hated him instantly. Oh, this man absolutely says manipulative things during arguments. Damien paused mid-step. Excuse me? Everyone froze. Right. Thought hearing. Rowan immediately looked away innocently. I said nothing. Damien narrowed his eyes slightly. Interesting. He clearly couldn't hear Rowan's thoughts. Good. Very good. Because Rowan might actually commit murder otherwise. Adrian, Damien said smoothly, approaching with practiced affection. You haven't answered my messages. Adrian's face became unreadable instantly. Cold. Guarded. Very different from the softer version Rowan usually saw now. I was busy. Damien finally noticed Rowan standing nearby. His smile sharpened subtly. And this is the gardener's son, Adrian answered flatly. Wow. Rude. I'm emotionally important now. Adrian's lips twitched once. Damien's gaze lingered on Rowan longer than necessary. Predatory. Calculating. Rowan immediately disliked it. Unfortunately, Damien suddenly stepped closer and offered a charming smile. I'm Damien, Adrian's fiancé, future ex-fiancé and certified garbage human. Damien's smile faltered slightly. Interesting servant, he murmured. Oh, he's very interesting, Eli said lazily from the sofa. Caspian watched silently, like a wolf observing another predator near its territory. Damien turned back toward Adrian smoothly. Can we speak privately? The atmosphere tightened, because everyone here knew what came next. In the original story, Damien would soon begin emotionally destabilizing Adrian while secretly approaching Luca. And Adrian, desperate for love, would fall directly into the manipulation. Rowan looked at Adrian quietly, then saw it, the fear hidden underneath Adrian's calm expression. Fear of abandonment. Fear Damien was already slipping away. It made Rowan irrationally angry. If this man hurts him, I'll bury him under the greenhouse. Adrian stared at Rowan. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. Damien noticed the exchange immediately. And suddenly, Damien smiled. Not pleasantly. Knowingly. Oh, Damien murmured softly. Rowan's instinct screamed. Danger. This man noticed too much. Actually, Damien continued smoothly, perhaps we should all spend time together. I'd love to know the people important to Adrian. Eli snorted quietly. Liar. Damien ignored him. The evening devolved into psychological warfare after that. Damien sat too close to Adrian. Eli interrupted constantly. Caspian verbally sliced Damien apart with elegant corporate insults. Luca tried desperately to keep peace. And Rowan. Rowan accidentally made everything worse by existing. Because Damien kept watching him. Carefully. Like he sensed Rowan was the variable changing the story. At one point, Damien casually touched Adrian's shoulder possessively while speaking. Rowan's irritation exploded instantly. Take your manipulative little hand off him before I deep fry you. Adrian coughed violently, trying to hide laughter. Eli lost the battle completely and started wheezing into the couch cushions. Even Luca looked seconds away from smiling. Damien stared around the room slowly now. Confused. Suspicious. And increasingly irritated. What exactly is funny? No idea, Caspian answered smoothly. Liar. Complete liar. Hours later, Damien finally left. But not before quietly telling Adrian. We need to discuss your position in the family soon. The second the door closed, the entire room darkened emotionally. Because they all understood the hidden meaning. Adrian's status as adopted son. Inheritance. Value. Disposable. Adrian looked exhausted suddenly. like the warmth from earlier vanished completely. "I'm tired," he said quietly before walking away. Rowan immediately followed him. "Adrian, don't." The word came out rougher than expected. Adrian stopped near the staircase without turning around. "I know what's happening," he whispered. Rowan's chest tightened, because Adrian already noticed Damien changing, already sensed the future approaching. "He's preparing to leave me," Adrian said softly. "No, he is." Silence. Adrian laughed bitterly. "You know what the funniest part is?" Slowly, Adrian turned around. His eyes looked glassy now. "Hurting. I still love him enough to hope I'm wrong." The confession hit Rowan harder than expected. Because this Adrian wasn't evil. Not yet. Just someone terrified of losing the person he built his future around. And Rowan knew exactly how that fear would eventually destroy him. "I won't let him ruin you." Adrian's breath caught instantly. The hallway became quiet. Heavy. Then Adrian stepped closer slowly. Close enough for Rowan to feel warmth radiating from him. "Why?" Adrian whispered. "What? Why do you care about me this much?" "Because I know how your story ends. Because I know nobody saves you. Because every version of your life ends with you abandoned." But Rowan couldn't say any of that. So instead, he answered honestly. "Because you deserve someone who stays." Adrian broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just one shattered inhale. Then suddenly Adrian grabbed Rowan's shirt and kissed him. Hard. Desperate. Like a starving man stealing warmth. Rowan froze completely. His mind went blank. Adrian's lips were warm. Shaking slightly. Painfully emotional. And Rowan, idiot Rowan, kissed him back for one brief dangerous second. The sound of glass shattering exploded nearby. Both men jerked apart violently. At the end of the hallway stood Caspian, broken whiskey glass at his feet, silver eyes terrifyingly dark. Behind him, Eli looked furious. And Luca. Luca looked absolutely heartbroken. Nobody spoke after the kiss. Not immediately. The hallway stood frozen in suffocating silence while shattered glass glittered across the floor beside Caspian's shoes. Adrian still gripped Rowan's shirt tightly. Rowan's lips burned. And Luca. Luca looked like someone had quietly cut his heart open. System 089 floated invisibly near the ceiling, whispering dramatically. "Oh, this is catastrophic." "Shut up," Rowan thought violently. Unfortunately, everyone heard that too. Eli moved first. Slowly. Dangerously calm. "That," Eli said softly, looked mutual. Rowan immediately panicked. It was emotional confusion. Adrian's grip tightened. Caspian's gaze turned colder. Luca looked away. And Rowan realized something horrifying. Nobody cared that Adrian kissed him. They cared that Rowan kissed him back. "Oh no." "Yes," Caspian said quietly. "Oh no." Rowan wanted to evaporate. Adrian finally released Rowan's shirt and stepped back, expression unreadable again. But Rowan could still see it. Fear. Because the original story had already conditioned Adrian to expect abandonment whenever he reached for something he wanted. Especially after tonight. Especially after seeing the Loron brothers' reactions. "I'm tired," Adrian said softly. Then he walked away. This time nobody stopped him. The next morning the mansion felt cursed. Nobody looked normal. Breakfast resembled a diplomatic meeting before war. Madame Vale sensed danger immediately and escaped after 5 minutes. Cowardly behavior, honestly. Rowan sat silently drinking coffee while trying not to make eye contact with anyone. Unfortunately, his thoughts remained suicidal. "Maybe if I fake amnesia, everyone will calm down." "No," Caspian said immediately. "Maybe death then." "Also no," Eli answered. Luca hid a smile behind his cup despite clearly still being upset. Rowan groaned and slammed his forehead lightly against the table. "I hate all of you." "That's not true," Adrian murmured quietly from beside him. The words slipped out softly, instinctively, like Adrian already knew Rowan's real thoughts better than his own. And honestly, that terrified Rowan, because Adrian was right. He didn't hate them. That was the problem. Somewhere between saving the story and chasing $2 billion. These people became important to him. Important enough that seeing Luca hurt made his chest ache. Important enough that Adrian crying quietly last night nearly shattered him. Important enough that Eli's laughter felt addictive. Important enough that Caspian staring at him too long made his pulse race. Dangerous. Everything about this situation was dangerous. Then the front doors opened. Damien arrived again, and instantly the atmosphere turned poisonous. Damien walked inside elegantly before stopping near the dining room entrance. His gaze swept across everyone carefully, then landed on Adrian. "I heard rumors," Damien said smoothly. Adrian's face hardened immediately. "What rumors?" Damien smiled faintly. "That you've become emotionally unstable lately." Rage flashed across Rowan instantly. "I'm going to hit him with a chair." Eli actually laughed. Damien's eyes narrowed slightly. Again, that confusion. That irritation over everyone reacting strangely around Rowan. But then Damien calmly pulled out several documents and placed them on the table. "I came to discuss the engagement." Silence crashed down. Adrian went pale instantly. Luca looked uncomfortable again. And Rowan. Rowan suddenly remembered. This was it. The turning point. The moment Damien would begin separating himself from Adrian publicly before approaching Luca instead. Damien sighed dramatically. "Adrian, you know my family needs stability. Your position within the Vale family is becoming uncertain." Every word was deliberate. Cruel. Calculated. Adrian sat perfectly still. Too still. Like if he moved, he'd break apart. "You said you loved me," Adrian whispered quietly. And Damien, that disgusting man, smiled sympathetically. "I did. Did." Past tense. Rowan saw Adrian shatter in real time. The same way it happened in the original novel. The same devastating heartbreak that eventually turned him desperate enough to destroy himself, trying to hold on to love. Except this time, Rowan was here. And Rowan was furious. Before anyone could react, Rowan stood abruptly. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Then he walked directly toward Damien. Everyone stared. Especially Damien. "What are you doing?" Damien asked coldly. Rowan smiled brightly, then grabbed the expensive glass of juice beside him, and accidentally spilled it all over Damien's shirt. A collective gasp echoed through the room. "OPS," Rowan said loudly. System 089 screamed laughing. Damien shot upward furiously. "You insolent." "Oh no," Rowan interrupted dramatically. "Did the juice attack you because it sensed evil?" Eli fell sideways laughing. Even Luca choked, trying not to smile. Caspian calmly looked away to hide amusement. And Adrian? Adrian stared at Rowan like he couldn't believe someone was standing in front of him instead of abandoning him. Damien's face twisted with humiliation. "You little servant." "Actually," Caspian interrupted smoothly, "Rowan works under my financial authority now." Everyone froze, including Rowan. "What does that mean?" Caspian met Damien's eyes coldly. "It means if you insult him again, I'll ruin your company before lunch." Silence. Heavy, terrifying silence. Damien laughed bitterly. "You're threatening me over a servant?" "No," Eli said softly from his seat. "Over someone important." The room stilled completely. Luca lowered his gaze quietly. Adrian stopped breathing. And Rowan's brain malfunctioned. "Oh no. Oh no, no, no." Damien finally understood. Not the mind reading. Not the chaos. The attachment. He looked around the room slowly before laughing once in disbelief. "You're all serious?" Nobody answered. Because they were. Damien's gaze landed on Rowan one last time, then sharpened dangerously. "You changed this house," he said quietly. Instinct screamed again. Villain. Threat. Future danger. But before Rowan could respond, Damien turned and left. This time for good. The second the doors closed, Adrian collapsed emotionally. Not dramatically, just silently sitting back down while staring at nothing, like he'd finally lost the last thing holding his world together. Rowan moved immediately. Without thinking, he crouched beside Adrian's chair and grabbed his hand gently. Warm fingers. Cold, trembling skin. "It hurts," Adrian admitted quietly. The honesty nearly killed Rowan. Because Adrian sounded young suddenly. Not manipulative. Not obsessive. Just heartbroken. And Rowan hated seeing him like this. "I'll stay until you're okay." The thought escaped naturally. Softly. Honestly. Every person in the room froze. Adrian looked at Rowan instantly. So you were planning to leave, Caspian said quietly. Rowan's blood ran cold. Crap. Huge crap. System 089 floated backward nervously. Because Rowan had forgotten something critical. These people heard everything, including thoughts about the future, about missions, about leaving. Eli's smile disappeared completely. Luca looked hurt again. And Adrian? Adrian looked terrified. You're leaving? Adrian whispered. Rowan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because what could he say? That he was never supposed to stay? That he originally only cared about money? That this world was temporary? That loving them was never part of the plan? Silence stretched painfully. Then quietly, too quietly, Adrian asked, Was I just part of your task too? The question shattered something inside Rowan's chest. Because Adrian looked genuinely afraid of the answer. Afraid Rowan's kindness had only been obligation. For the first time since transmigrating, Rowan realized the mission was no longer the problem. Leaving was. The silence in the dining room felt unbearable. Adrian's question still hung heavily in the air. Was I just part of your task too? Rowan looked at him, really looked at him, and suddenly understood something horrifying. Adrian expected the answer to be yes. Because everyone in Adrian's life had always wanted something from him. Love with conditions. Affection with hidden motives. Even kindness came attached to expectations. And now Rowan, the one person Adrian trusted most, had accidentally revealed he planned to leave too. Caspian stood near the window silently. Eli's expression had lost all humor. Luca looked pale. And Adrian? God! Adrian looked like he was preparing himself to be abandoned again. Rowan hated it. He hated all of it. The misunderstanding. The fear. The pain sitting in Adrian's eyes. Okay, Rowan said weakly. System 089 immediately screamed from the corner. No, absolutely not. Don't expose the system. Shut up. Everyone froze. Because this time, they heard another voice. A tiny floating man wearing sunglasses and glitter boots appeared midair. Complete silence. System 089 slowly lowered his popcorn bucket. Oh! Madame Vale walked into the dining room at the exact wrong moment. She stared at the floating creature. The creature stared back. Then Madame Vale calmly turned around. No. Mother, wait. Too late. She vanished. System 089 sighed deeply. Well, this mission report is going to ruin my career. Nobody cared about the system right now, because all four men were staring directly at Rowan. Waiting. Rowan rubbed his face tiredly. Okay, nobody panic. You're talking to a floating creature, Eli said flatly. I think we're past panic. That's fair. System 089 floated upward dramatically. Greetings, mortals. I am. No one asked, Caspian interrupted coldly. The system looked offended. Rowan inhaled deeply, then finally said the truth. I'm not from this world. Silence. Luca blinked slowly. Adrian's breathing stopped entirely. And Rowan. Rowan explained everything. The lottery. The heart attack. The transmigration. The mission. The original story. Every terrible ending. Every future tragedy. He told them about Adrian dying alone. About Damien manipulating him. About Luca being protected while Adrian got abandoned. About Caspian and Eli destroying Adrian in the original timeline to protect Luca. Every word hurt more than the last. Especially when Rowan finally whispered, I knew all of your futures before I even met you. Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. And somehow that made it worse. Adrian looked devastated. Not angry. Devastated. So every kind thing you did, Adrian whispered. At first it was because of the mission, Rowan admitted honestly. The words sliced through the room. Luca lowered his eyes. Eli laughed once bitterly under his breath. And Caspian. Caspian looked at Rowan like he was trying very hard not to feel betrayed. Rowan's chest tightened painfully. But not anymore. Silence. Then Rowan stood abruptly. Frustrated. Emotional. Terrified. I was supposed to leave, he snapped suddenly. That was the plan. His voice echoed loudly. I was going to finish the mission, take my money, and disappear. System 089 nodded. Correct. Very standard transmigration proc. Shut up. The system shut up. Rowan dragged both hands through his hair aggressively. You think I wanted this? I had 2 billion waiting for me. Eli stared at him blankly. You're confessing emotionally and financially at the same time. I contain multitudes. Then Rowan looked directly at Adrian, and his voice softened instantly. But somewhere along the way, you people became important. Adrian's expression cracked slightly. Rowan turned toward Luca next. You smile like you're afraid happiness will disappear if you enjoy it too much. Luca's eyes widened, then toward Eli. You act unserious because you hate when people notice how intense you actually are. Eli went silent. And finally, Caspian, you pretend you can control everything because you're terrified of losing people. The room fell completely still, because Rowan was right about all of them. Painfully right. Rowan swallowed hard. I didn't mean to care about any of you. His laugh came out weak. Honestly, I was prepared to emotionally manipulate everyone for money. Wow, Eli murmured. But then Adrian started smiling around me. Adrian's breath hitched. Luca trusted me. Luca looked close to tears now. Eli made me laugh even when I was stressed. Eli's expression softened immediately. And Caspian? Rowan paused. Caspian made me feel safe. Complete silence. Even System 089 stopped joking. Rowan looked away quickly, embarrassed. I know this situation is messed up. I know I lied. I know half my thoughts sound insane. He groaned. Seriously, the thought-hearing thing ruined my dignity. That was not intentional, System 089 muttered quietly. But none of my feelings are fake. The words landed heavily. Honestly, completely honestly. Rowan looked directly at all 4 of them now. I love you. Silence. Then immediately. I also still want the money. The room froze. System 089 screamed, laughing so hard he fell out of the air. Eli bent over the table, wheezing. Even Caspian looked seconds away from laughing. Adrian stared at Rowan in disbelief. You confessed emotionally, Adrian whispered, and immediately mentioned money again. I'm consistent. Luca suddenly laughed. Soft at first. Then harder. Real laughter. The tension finally cracked apart completely. Rowan sighed dramatically. Look, I'm staying, okay? I already decided. Everyone went still again. Adrian looked up instantly. What? Rowan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. I completed enough of the mission already. The system said I can choose now. System 089 nodded sadly. Technically true. And Rowan looked around the room quietly. At Adrian. At Luca. At Eli. At Caspian. Then smiled softly. I'm choosing this world. The words hit harder than anything else. Because this time, Rowan chose them willingly. Not because of the mission. Not because of fate. Not because of obligation. Choice. Adrian's eyes turned red immediately. Luca covered his mouth. Eli looked genuinely emotional for once in his life. And Caspian, calm, terrifying Caspian, closed his eyes briefly like he was overwhelmed. Then Adrian suddenly stood and kissed Rowan again. This time gently, carefully, like he was afraid Rowan might disappear. Eli immediately complained. Favoritism. Luca nodded seriously. Agreed. Caspian adjusted his sleeves calmly. We should establish a schedule. Rowan choked violently. A what? System 089 floated upward dramatically. Well, since emotional disaster has been resolved, I shall now reveal the final hidden truth. Everyone looked at him. The system grinned wickedly. The thought-hearing ability? Rowan narrowed his eyes. What about it? The system pointed proudly at the 4 men. It never malfunctioned. Silence. Rowan blinked. What? System 089 cackled. The people who heard your thoughts were always your destined emotional anchors. The room froze. Then slowly, very slowly, all 4 men turned toward Rowan at the exact same time. Rowan felt primal fear. Oh no! Eli smiled dangerously. Caspian loosened his tie. Luca stepped closer shyly. And Adrian? Adrian looked absolutely possessive now that Rowan officially admitted he was staying. System 089 floated toward the ceiling. My work here is done. Come back here, you little demon. Too late. The system vanished. leaving Rowan alone with four beautiful, emotionally attached rich men. And honestly, as Adrian pulled him closer while Eli argued about kissing rights, and Luca quietly held his hand while Caspian discussed moving Rowan into the main house, Rowan realized something important. Maybe dying from happiness twice wouldn't be so bad after all.